Well met and welcome to Week 2, Day 3 of the Hearthstone Global Games. My name is Robert Wing, and I'm joined on the desk by Cora. We are now 10 games into Week 2 of the Hearthstone Global Games. Cora, what has been the most surprising thing you've seen thus far?
That's a tough one. Of course, we've had some upsets so far in this tournament. Greece falling 0-2 early on, I think, was definitely very unexpected. Also, South Korea losing earlier on this week to Slovakia. That was definitely something that I would not have predicted myself.
Yeah, already a lot of shakeups. Again, we're very early into these Hearthstone Global Games, but we're starting to see, which teams are rising to the top and others that are kind of falling to the wayside that need to do a little bit more work. Let's go ahead and take a look at the format of the Hearthstone Global Games. As you see, we start here in Stage 1, where we have 8 groups of 6 teams in a 10-week round robin. 6 groups of 4 teams will then advance to Stage 2, where there'll be a 3-week round robin. But the name of the game is really making it to Stage 3, where you'll have a 16-team single elimination, with the top 4 advancing to a live LAN finals later this year.
Yeah, completely ecstatic for the fact that we are able to cast this tournament. It's going to be a long journey, but eventually we will advance to that live finals, and that is what all of these teams are fighting for. 48 countries have been broken down into these groups, and here we can see Bulgaria, Brazil, and Sweden coming out on top of Group A over the first week. China, Indonesia, and Switzerland falling in their first matches of the tournament.
Yeah, we're starting to see more of these groups. The edge is starting to fill in. I got to point this out. United States 2-0. Shout out to the boys in the red, white, and blue, doing us proud here from the California studio. Defeating the Netherlands just yesterday. Netherlands still have a record of 1-1, so still doing work. And we'll know more about Group B as we actually cast Peru versus Thailand tonight.
Group C, Argentina, we saw on our broadcast last week, as well as Russia and New Zealand going up to quick 1-0 victories. Austria, Australia, and Spain. 3 contenders still in this group, but they are going to have to put in some work if they want to come back from this early deficit.
Yeah, and in Group D, you mentioned it, Slovakia 3-0ing South Korea. Definitely cannot imagine anyone thinking that would be the case. Raven, of course, having chosen South Korea as his caster pick team, so have to imagine he's feeling a little bit disappointed. Hong Kong and Portugal have yet to play, and yeah, again, as you mentioned, Greece 0-2, work for them to do before Phase 1 is over.
And with Group E, Italy, Japan up 1-0. Norway is at a 1-1 record. We've yet to see Chile play, and then Finland and Israel have already dropped to 0-1 scores.
Yeah, so by next week, we will obviously have had every team play once, so the group stages will start to become more filled out. But I want to point out again, Canada, that was the team that I have picked to win it all. They are currently 1-0, so shout out to those guys. They're doing a great job beating France in their first week. But this whole group is pretty much up for grabs, and we'll be taking a look later on at Kazakhstan versus Malaysia.
Yep, that's going to be our second match of today. And then looking at Group G, Turkey and Taiwan 1-0 match record. Poland 1-1. And then Singapore we have yet to see. Mexico and Vietnam falling very early on in their first match.
Yeah, so Group H here, Ukraine, nobody's surprised by this result. I have to think Ukraine, for a lot of people, was kind of the team coming into this that they're expecting to, if not win, certainly be there at those live finals later this year. Ukraine again 2-0, no surprise. Czech Republic 1-0, very respectable. Belarus yet to play, and Germany, Philippines, Croatia currently winless.
Yes, definitely some upsets in this group. Germany is a team that may have had some roster upsets early on, but certainly everybody's had their eyes on it to be a very strong team. Yep. So gonna have to see if they can fight back into this tournament, but it is 48 countries overall. We may have 6 or 7 giants that stand out very early on, but half of these teams are moving on to Stage 2. So the real story is, who are these lesser teams that are going to prove themselves and fight to make it in there with the titans like USA and Ukraine?
Yeah, there are some teams that people have automatically earmarked for advancement, but, to your point, what are going to be those other 15 or 16 teams that, as the games go on, we actually start to advance to Stage 2? Big question marks. Excited to see how this goes as we continue. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on, though, for tonight. Some exciting matches coming. If you don't necessarily know about the way some of these groups are panning out, we will begin with Peru versus Thailand and then go over to Kazakhstan versus Malaysia. Now, want to make the point. in both of these teams' groups, they are the two teams that I think have the lowest expectations on them in terms of advancement, not because they themselves are not skilled players, but because they're playing with such powerhouse teams that I mentioned. Again, United States, United Kingdom, some of these bigger teams that we're expecting to really see go the distance. So it'll be interesting to see if these teams can kind of go the distance and really start to show that there is some reason to be excited about what they could do.
Well, and it is important to note that these teams are from regions of the world that have performed very well in Hearthstone, but have consistently been, I would say, a little bit on the outskirts. South America and Southeast Asia have had representatives in the Hearthstone Championship Tour and have won major tournaments, but still feel a bit disconnected from Europe, from the United States, from Canada. So for them to really stand out and prove themselves in this tournament, that's going to be a big deal for these teams.
Yeah, as we look at those teams, really, there's only one person that stands out, that, of course, being Nyman, but we'll get to him later in terms of Hearthstone Championship Tour representation. Cora, why don't you walk us through the Peru roster?
All right, so for Peru, we have Nandieb, Kishtar, Izzy, and Uchiha Sasuke.
And representing Thailand, we have another Z, Pato Yao, Viper Pro, and Makgi. So, again, you mentioned some of these people are a little bit lesser known. Coming in here, the regions on the whole have been well represented, but taking it just a step more granular, these countries have yet to have that great deal of success. South America, Brazil, and Argentina, they've had a representative at the Hearthstone Championship Tour since the inception of the Hearthstone Championship Tour. Peru, nothing to speak of thus far.
Yeah, Peru, definitely one of the lesser-known Hearthstone countries in South America. So looking to make a splash in this tournament. And these four players may be some lesser-known players, but we do have Kishtar on the Peruvian team, who is a popular streamer. Here we can see Thailand in all of its glory.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. You can't just go anywhere to find what is that, a brook, stream?
A pond.
Yeah, you're actually watching a stream on a stream.
And here we see a city.
I mean, okay, cities are pretty.
It's a nice
there's a lot
city.
of those. Yeah, you can see those in other places, but that's a pretty nice looking city there. And
all right, we don't have that everywhere.
that's Machu Picchu. That's in one place. Geographically speaking, you actually
one place you have to go.
Can't see that. Yeah, and llamas.
I don't know that I've ever seen one before.
Did you know they spit?
I did actually. Alpacas are much nicer.
There you go. All right, we are taking a look though at again, beautiful cities of Peru. But take a look at Group B, where we will begin the evening. As we mentioned earlier, the United States has come out swinging. They 3-0'd and 3-1 respectively. Their total game score 6-1. Netherlands currently 1-1. Romania and United Kingdom, shout out to Saddle and Raven, currently 0-1, so they'll have to get on their feet. But the story tonight is going to be Peru versus Thailand, and what to make of two teams that really do not have necessarily a ton of expectations set up for them. But taking a look at the way these teams stack up in terms of their classes and what they're bringing, Cora, why don't you explain the Hearthstone Global Games competitive format?
All right, so the Hearthstone Global Games format, obviously 4 players per each of these teams, and then the 9 classes are broken down to each of these players. So each player gets 2 classes, and then it is a best-of-5 blind pick conquest format, same as we've been seeing for ages now, it feels like. If it comes down to game number 5, one of the players that has played previously will have to come in as the ace. In this case, for Peru, it's Uchiha Sasuke, and for Thailand, it is Viper Pro, where they then will have the option to play the class that they did not play prior, or that 9th class.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that teams pick their own aces, so this is not pre-selected. They determine who amongst their team is going to be the player that comes in the clutch at that game 5, that pivotal moment to decide what team actually gets the win. It's very exciting to me because I think there's a great degree of psychology behind it, right? Because you have to imagine on certain teams, there's going to be multiple people who want that accolade. Who ultimately gets it. So I think whoever is in that spot, the team has a ton of respect for them.
Absolutely. We're expecting it to come down to which player the teams think is the strongest. And for some of these lesser-known teams that we don't know as much about, it's going to be interesting to see if these players can really perform. So here we have the picks for game number 1. It is going to be Kishtar taking on Viper Pro. Kishtar with the Warrior and Viper Pro with the Mage.
Yeah, so if you haven't necessarily watched some Hearthstone in a while, things are pretty different in the tavern in the last 2 weeks. We've had Journey to Ungoro release. We've had the Hall of Fame, take out some of the older cards that we've known pretty well and put them in Wild, so they're no longer in standard rotation. And then obviously we've had set rotation, which removed 3 sets from actual standard. So this is a totally different ballgame. And I got to point out, Warrior has pretty much emerged across multiple power rankings, across community statistics, as being that class that is currently in the #1 spot. Cora, why is that?
Well, Warrior has really emerged as one of the strongest classes post-Ungoro because it has two very defined archetypes. You have the Pirate Warrior, which is very aggressive. Certainly, we've seen a lot of Pirate Warrior by now. And then the Quest Warrior, which is the complete opposite of Pirate Warrior. Play lots of taunts, build up to Sulfurous, and then kill your opponent eventually with 8 damage per turn from your hero power. Mage, however, we are seeing also two very different archetypes, but there certainly are still a few variations on each of these archetypes as well. So you have the Time Warp Quest Mage, which you're seeing at some of the lower ranks on ladder. Of course, we did see it in the Hearthstone Global Games last week, so we may very well see it again. And then the name of the game at the top of ladder and the top of competitive play is Freeze Mage.
Yeah, and even in that, the Freeze Mage is starting to undergo so many different changes as people start tinkering with the way you play that. You know, in times past, there were kind of different approaches to it, but now it's based on, you know, do you bring double Pyroblast? Do you bring Pyroblast Antonidas? Primordial Glyph offers you potentially more range and flexibility in terms of how you play it. And, you know, we're starting to see people abandon the freeze package, start putting in, you know, legendaries like Medivh. So this is a continued iteration, but yeah, the dust is starting to settle just the tiniest bit as we head into week 2 of Journey to Ungoro.
Yeah, decks are starting to be refined for sure, but here we can see Kishtar for Peru and Viper Pro for Thailand. As you can see, both of these players are alone, but they do have their 3 team members likely on voice comms. They can all communicate and work together while they're in the game. So Kishtar looks like he might be talking to himself. I'm certain he's actually just talking to his teammates.
Yeah, and if you like Kishtar's setup, I got to point out, Kishtar is actually a very popular streamer. You know, so when you look at the Peruvian team, he's the guy who is certainly the most well-known, and he's a very popular streamer. He's popular on social media, very well-known. He was actually out there congratulating Argentina for their win last week. So, you know, he's definitely representing that South American spirit in the global game. So very cool to see his setup. Viper Pro representing Thailand, and he's coming in here as someone who has competed. You know, he's fairly well-known within his respective country, but he certainly doesn't have the same following that Kishtar does.
Yeah, obviously, as a streamer, you're going to have more people who just know who you are. For competitive players, it's a little bit more difficult to get that notoriety, but Viper Pro is no slouch. He has been playing for a team for quite a while. He is a control master of the control archetype in this game. So it's going to be interesting to see the battle versus the streamer and the more competitive player who will come out on top.
Yeah, when you look at how players got into the global games in the first place, they either got in through sheer Hearthstone Championship Tour points for the 2017 winter season, or they were voted in. And, you know, it's cool to get voted in. The community loves you. They think very highly of you. But look, at the end of the day, you're coming to the tavern. You're coming to play a game. You got to get the win. You have to get that W. All your clout doesn't matter. So very excited to see what we have here from Viper Pro and Kishtar. Just breaking it down, though, it appears we have that Quest Warrior and then have to think Freeze Mage.
Yeah, I would absolutely say this is a Freeze Mage from the opening hand from Thailand. So Quest Warrior, relatively straightforward. The deck hasn't changed much since its inception just 2 weeks ago. Fireplume's Heart on turn 1. From there on, you have to play 7 taunt minions. You get Sulfurous, which is the 3-mana 4/2 weapon that turns your hero power into Die Insect, 8 damage to a random enemy. And then Freeze Mage, like you said, has certainly changed with the rotation of Cone of Cold and Emperor Thaurissan. Now it has much less reach, but with double Pyroblast, with Antonidas, we're still seeing very strong results from this deck.
Yeah, now I want to talk about this matchup in particular because it is one that, in one form or another, has existed for quite some time. And depending on the meta, depending on the sets that are available in standard rotation, Freeze Mage always has an uphill battle. This is just a matchup that tends to favor the Warrior because the Warrior's generating armor, and generally speaking, the Freeze Mage has a pretty, set reach, a set amount of damage it can do. Now, in 2017, in Journey to Ungoro, Year of the Mammoth, you have the Primordial Glyphs, which I mentioned give you some flexible options in terms of how much damage you can churn out. But it's interesting to me because Time Warp, which most people are kind of feeling is left in the dust now by Freeze Mage being, a viable deck, Time Warp has a way better chance in this matchup just because you can go Infinite Fireball with the 4 Sources Apprentice via Molten Reflection. It's going to be interesting to see if Kishtar is running Armor Smith, because that can be a card that absolutely gives the mage fits.
Yeah, if this was a quest mage variant, armor doesn't matter, health doesn't matter. As long as you have a long enough time to be able to draw the cards in your deck and build out that combo, eventually you will be able to kill your opponent. As we don't see a quest in the opening mulligan, this will just be a more standard post-Ungoro freeze mage variant, which means there is a limitation to how much damage Thailand can deal. And if there is an Archmage Antonidas in the deck, well, Peru is going to be running 2 copies of that card right there, Dirty Rat. And the reason that some teams have been deciding to play double Pyroblast instead of 1 Antonidas, 1 Pyroblast, you can't Dirty Rat a Pyroblast, Rob.
That's true. That's just factually accurate.
It's just facts.
Yeah. I do want to point out, too, that, when Icelance was rotated out into Wild via the Hall of Fame changes, everyone was out there at the funeral for Freeze Mage. Laughing was up there giving a touching eulogy.
He brought flowers.
I just remember all the fun times. But,
yeah.
Freeze Mage is like, actually, I'm not dead. I'm here. I'm back. A little bit less reach, maybe a little few bells and whistles, but I'm still here. And it is proving to be the superior variant of more control-oriented mage thus far. And like I said, continue to be iterated upon as people find what the best approach is.
Yeah, and obviously in this matchup, a Quest Mage would be more effective, but across the board, Freeze Mage is just going to be your better bet for variations on the Mage class. So here, Viper Pro pretty much just going through the motions in the first couple of turns. No really difficult decisions to make as of yet. And obviously, the Warrior deck, like we said, is pretty straightforward. There is a Deathwing in the hand for Kishtar, which I want to highlight. It's not an automatic inclusion in this deck, but you do play the Curator. So now you have the options of Primordial Drake or Deathwing. And often, if you need a last-minute resort, if you need to hit that panic button, Deathwing is the way you're going to do it.
Yeah, Deathwing, obviously when it comes to resetting a board, you give up a lot to do it. But sometimes you just need things to get off the board so you can not die. And, 12-12, oftentimes if your opponent doesn't have the answer, Deathwing's just going to clock him 2 or 3 times and be like, well, that is 12 damage. And we see here the Dirty Rat coming out and pulling out Viper Pro's Doomsayer. I think this is very important to note. That Acolyte of Pain got 0 draws. That's a very rare circumstance. A lot of times you'll see it go 1. It just cycles itself, essentially. 0 draws because of that Doomsayer that the Dirty Rat pulled out.
Yeah, you saw Kishtar actually celebrating after that Dirty Rat pull. That's a huge deal. If you can limit the Freeze Mage's draw, since the beginning of Freeze Mage, draw is what it needs to survive. And if you can essentially take an Acolyte of Pain out of the game for the Mage, it's going to be much more difficult for them to get to the burn that they need. The Warrior's going to have more time to armor up, and eventually the Warrior will just be out of reach for the Mage. And as we were saying, Deathwing is an interesting inclusion in this deck. Not effective in this matchup. Minion combat is not going to mean anything here for the Mage, especially since the Warrior is doing nothing but playing taunts.
Yeah, there are a few more minions you're running in Freeze Mage these days, and against some of the more tempo aggression-oriented decks, you're going to have the opportunity to make minion combat matter. But yeah, this is one of those things where, as a Freeze Mage, you just need to start cycling, you need to find your burn, you need to find the lines of play that allow you to burn out your opponent before they themselves get to the clock that is Die Insect, because once that clock starts ticking, you're taking 8 damage a turn, and there's no Renos here, there's no full heals anymore, so once you're dead, you're actually, seems common sense, you're just dead.
You can't cheat the clock anymore, no Reno Jackson in this meta. And Viper Pro elected to simply hero power this past turn, did not play the Acolyte of Pain, specifically as a response to the fact that Peru might have had Fiery War Axe. They did not at the time, but Kishtar did draw it off the top. So Viper Pro, knowing he lost the first Acolyte of Pain, needs to get as much value off of the second one as possible, and 1 draw, if Kishtar had a Fiery War Axe in hand, would not be enough value.
Yeah, and one thing that really hasn't changed, despite the fact that the meta has gone through such an upheaval, is weaving in those hero powers, getting in that 1 damage wherever possible, can oftentimes just mean the difference between victory and defeat. So I like getting that in, waiting until you have the guaranteed ability to ping your own Acolyte. It's just better sequencing overall. This is actually a deck I've been playing a fair bit of lately because, as I've kind of advertised over the years of casting, I'm definitely more of an aggro player, but I want to make sure I understood Tempo Mage better, so I was actually being coached for better or for worse on stream by MD Shack, who, bless him, he's a patient teacher because I'm real bad at it. But yeah, this deck is actually a lot of fun to play, and I don't know, it's hard to describe because I found the old Freeze Mage a little bit tedious, but the newer variant actually just feels a lot more fun because I think it's Primordial Glyph.
Yeah.
The fact that you can get an 8-mana Pyroblast and then get it in there with a ping as well. It's a very fun deck. It's super effective right now. Has a lot of really positive matchups for what's going on in ranked play. So if you have maybe at this point thought Freeze Mage isn't the deck for me, it might finally be time to go ahead and take a flyer on it.
I mean, I was always more a fan of the Control Warrior builds. I've been playing a lot of the Quest Warrior on ladder. And I don't know, in the Freeze Mage versus Control Warrior matchup, I just...
How do you find that matchup personally, out of curiosity?
How did I used to find it, or how do I find it now?
How do you find it now? Like, if you're as someone who's playing a fair bit of this Taunt Quest Warrior, do you tend to find you win or lose matchups against Freeze Mage more often?
I would say you're slightly favored. It's not a guarantee if you don't deal with the Antonitis quickly. If they Antonitis and freeze your board and you have used your removal at that point, you don't have a way to kill him, you're probably going to die because they're just going to have 4 or 5 fireballs at that point. But if you're able to remove Antonitis quickly, if you dirty rat it out, the early minion damage doesn't mean much, and eventually they just reach a threshold where they can't kill you. You don't have tank up anymore, so it's obviously much harder to rank up, but you do still have 2 armor per turn. Every time Ally Armorsmith hits, you get 2 more, so it is enough to push you over the edge where Freeze Mage, eventually, there's just nothing they can do if you use your resources wisely.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate summation of it. Now, having Alex Straza on 9,
yeah,
and then, going double Pyroblast if you're running the double
Pyroblast. Who would ever make that card?
As a Hearthstorian myself, there was a dark time when I believe it was Moon's, just the earliest really successful deck was Moon's Aggro Mage. Yeah, and you just run a double 8 mana Pyroblast back in the day. Those were the good old days.
Primordial Glyph, we can live those days again.
Now we see Viper Pro taking a little bit longer on this turn because he really needs to figure out if he's going to deal with that Ally Armorsmith or not. The Ally Armorsmith left unchecked is just going to continue to generate armor, but giving up a Fireball on this feels really bad. You kind of need all the damage you're going to have the ability to produce to go face. And anytime you're using damage on minions in the 2017 year of the Mammoth Freeze Mage, it just feels awful because you don't really have, outside of Antonitis and Primordial Glyph Antics, the ability to generate a bunch of damage spells like you would have in the Emperor Thorsand days.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot harder. Committing the Fireball and the hero power here to the Ally Armorsmith is giving it great respect and saying that the Armorsmith would have generated more than 7 damage or more than 6 damage from the Fireball just by attacking before Viper Pro could have removed it. So I think this is wise. The unfortunate thing is there is going to be another Ally Armorsmith in deck. There's probably 2 copies of Shield Block. There's the inevitability of just the hero power. It's still going to be an uphill battle, but I do think that was a wise decision.
Yeah, I tend to agree on that one. You just can't let it unchecked or else over time it's going to generate more armor than the Fireball would have done damage. So that is a real problem. Now, I want to point out, going into the global games, this is kind of a little bit more of a discussion in how you prep for your opponents. Going into this, again, they didn't have access to deck lists or anything, and when we ourselves as the casters are gathering information, we're forced to rely a lot on social media, a lot on looking up the players on websites like Team Liquid's wiki and all that jazz. And when you actually go Google Viper Pro, what comes up is essentially his quote about being a control player. That's what he loves. He loves Freeze Mage, he loves Miracle Rogue, he loves all those decks that require you to think out long-term strategies, read the lines, get the win. And if you're Kishtar and you look up and you see you're playing Viper Pro and you have Warrior and you see the classes he's bringing, you're probably pretty safe to assume he's playing control decks. That's what he likes. So making the read to bring in Quest Warrior, I don't know if that was intentional or if any homework was done, but I actually really like this because, to your point, I do think, I'm not going to throw out like exact numbers. This matchup is 62% favored for the...
Let's pull up the Data Reaper right now. I've got...
I was going to say, just pull out your phone.
We don't have TJ and Admirable's book within a book within a book, unfortunately.
No, but this is absolutely something where I really like this from Kishtar if it was intentional to make the read, because if there's one thing Quest Warrior does at this point, it kind of just destroys long-term win decks like Freeze Mage, because you're just saying, well, you have to draw all these specific pieces. I'm just going to play taunts. You're not really making a board. I can actually just hard mulligan into taunts because once I get the Ragnar's hero power online, I'm favored. I'm just going to do 8 damage a turn. You have to get all your stuff and draw through most of your deck.
It's an inevitability factor with both of these decks. And when you have 2 very control-oriented decks that inevitably will win if you give them enough time, it's a really interesting dynamic to see them playing against each other. And Kishtar's had a bit of a slower start. We didn't see any Stonehill Defenders in his opening hand. The amount of taunts he's played is still very low, but ramping up to 8, 9, 10 mana, everything in his deck will be available to him. And the highest taunt you're really going to have is the Primordial Drake. So eventually, he will complete that quest. The question is, will Thailand have enough time to be able to draw through their deck, to find the combo pieces, to generate enough value from burn spells off of Antonidas, off of Primordial Glyph, maybe Kabbalist's Tome if it's in the list, to be able to break through the wall and the amount of armor that Kishtar has built up at that point?
Yeah, the answer, if I had to guess right now, is honestly looking like no. Being fair, the Freeze Mage has no cycle. Alexstrasza is a great piece to have. Archmage Antonidas again, another great piece to have, but you're not drawing deeper into your deck. Again, I point to the fact that Acolyte, the first Acolyte died without getting any card draw whatsoever. Just basically a dead card. It was a 1/3 that did nothing for you. And unless Thailand can find an Arcane Intellect, you know, some decks are maybe running like a Cold Light Oracle. It's a lot more rare this week. But there are ways you can get into drawing cards. Novice Engineer, find something to get deeper into the deck, because right now you're just giving the Warrior time, and that's the way you lose this matchup.
It's unfortunate, because time is the way that you lose this matchup, and it's the way that you win this matchup. And certainly, Viper Pro wanted to be able to cycle earlier. That was the intention with the Acolyte of Pain on turn 3. And Dirty Rat just came in and crushed his hopes and dreams like it has been doing so much for so many people.
Yeah. Dirty Rat against a Freeze Mage, realistically, there's maybe one target you don't want to see that early on, and it's Antonidas. And you don't even know if they're running Antonidas because, again, the shifting thought from the community is that the double Pyroblast version is starting to be chosen more and more. So if you just take Antonidas out of the equation and live in a world where you don't expect Antonidas and Freeze Mage, everything you pull out from that Dirty Rat is essentially pretty good. Maybe worst case scenario, there's an Acolyte that gets pulled and you can't immediately deal with it, so it gets a draw or two. But again, grand scheme of things, that's really not backbreaking. But pulling out the Doomsayer there was ultimately pretty backbreaking thus far in this game.
Yeah, it robbed Thailand of that hard removal with a freeze spell, and of course it robbed them of their card draw off of the Acolyte of Pain. So Peru just going to drop the Primordial Drake into the Alexstrasza, still sitting pretty at 29 health. No real pressure here, considering Thailand only has 5 cards in hand. And obviously the Alex is going to break right through that Drake, kill it very easily, but that is one more taunt on their quest meter, and it is 8 damage prevented from hitting face at this point.
The upside here for Thailand is that Kishtar doesn't have the execute or a really convenient way to deal with the Alexstrasza. And maybe you wouldn't execute that Alexstrasza because you're saving it for potential Antonidas. That's your backup plan. But again, not being able to deal with that means that Thailand is at least going to get to decide what it wants to do with that Alexstrasza. And it looks like it's going to come down to a little bit of dragon on dragon crime. Somewhere
Dragon on
real
dragon
sad.
crime. Yeah. It's a real plague on this country and other countries as well. 47 of them.
47 other countries. Yeah.
Specific. But right now, just especially Peru and Thailand.
Now, Viper Pro could decide to just cash in and get one Fireball right now, but being frank, that's not a way he's going to win this game. He really needs to get at least 2 Fireballs off this. Going to go ahead and go for it. Saw the Alexstrasza didn't get executed, thinking this may be my window. So we'll have to see if Peru chooses to answer this with, you know, that Deathwing, which I doubt, or the Brawl. But again, that's not a high percentage Brawl there.
This is a bit of a tough situation for Peru. Deathwing obviously is hard removal, but do they want to sacrifice that many cards? I'd say no.
I don't know if that's the answer. Again, it probably isn't. You could look at something, Acolyte of Pain into Brawl, potentially even toss down the Dirty Rat, which really maximize your chances of that Antonidas going away. But one thing is clear. If you leave that Antonidas up, that is how you lose the game. That Antonidas has to go, and then from there, you might as well just set it on cruise control, pour yourself a glass of orange juice, and just chill back in your chair because you've probably got this.
I mean, this is pretty much Thailand's last stand. Viper Pro played the Antonidas Frostbolted Face to prevent Fiery War Axe hitting in with an execute, trying to limit as many possible ways that this board can be removed, because pretty much the only chance at winning for Thailand at this point is Antonidas sticking.
Okay, so we are going to see the Deathwing come out, and look, I said it. Antonidas has got to go, and he is gone. He's just not there anymore.
You know what? That was pretty much the only guaranteed way to remove that board. If you'd gone with Acolyte, Dirty Rat, and Brawl, 25% of the time, you're really hurting. And another 25% of the time, they just have an 8-2 on board that they smack you in the face with. So, you know what? I don't hate this.
as our friends at the Hearthstone Championship Tour like to say, percentage-based players make percentage-based plays, and Kishtar decides right there, I want a 100% guarantee that the Archmage is dead.
Well, and we were saying Archmage Antonidas is pretty much the only way that Thailand is going to win this game from this point on. Yeah, there's probably Pyroblast in the deck. There is no other Fireballs, actually. Actually, no, there is one more natural Fireball that was generated from the Frostbolt. So there's still some burn left, but they're getting to the end of their deck. There's not going to be enough here to put on pressure to kill Peru.
And look, you didn't just pay 10 mana to discard your hand and kill Archmage Antonidas. You also get a 12/12 dragon, so
yeah,
that puts, that puts Thailand on a clock in and of itself. We are going to see, a taunt drawn. What a surprise!
Well, the draws for Kishtar are very strong here. You have Curator left in deck. You have another Primordial Drake, likely. You have, of course, the Direhorn Hatchling. So, sooner than later, you're going to draw taunt minions. You're going to finish your quest, and at that point, you don't even really need cards to win the game. You just have a hero power.
Rough situation for Thailand to be in. It's trying to find a way where this can go better. I think Primordial Glyph is where it has to start. You find something off that Primordial Glyph. You're staring at 27 health. Okay, there's a Primordial Glyph. Gotta think we're gonna rip this here. Now, what are you looking for on this Primordial Glyph? Does it pretty much have to be Pyroblast?
You can Kabbalist Tome into 3 Pyroblasts.
That's pretty good.
Or 2 Pyroblasts and a Fireball. But it has to be some form of card generation or burn. Here's a Fireball.
Okay.
That's a good start.
Pyroblast younger cousin, that's still pretty good.
Well, 2 mana here, I'll take it.
Man, 2 mana for 6 damage, I will take that all day. You had to pay 2 mana first, but still, if you ignore that and just look at the pretty card. Okay,
yes,
so
it's a very pretty card.
So that Direhorn Hatchling, gotta say. Big fan of the art in this series, but we are looking at 18 damage in hand and this may become important later, you can string together in 1 turn. But where does the rest of the damage come from? And again, Kishtar is gaining 2 health a turn. Even if you were to use your hero power every single turn, you're still losing out. He's still gaining 1 health per turn.
Well, it's potentially, because there is likely a Pyroblast in the deck. I would say 1 because there was Archmage Antonidas as well. You've got 18 in hand with Fireballs, an additional 10 from Pyroblast, weave in a couple hero powers. It's still not going to be enough, but they're really close.
Yeah, Kishtar smiling there as he slams his own Deathwing. This game has certainly gotten to a place he probably feels comfortable in, but maybe a place he didn't expect to be in. Yeah, I doubt against the Freeze Mage, you're really expecting many situations where you say, okay, I got to jam Deathwing and I have to throw away my whole hand. Or else the minions are going to be that big of a problem.
In that situation where literally probably the only way you lose is if that Antonidas lives. Death to the Antonidas, a 12/12 dragon on board. Sure, you ditch 5 cards, but at this point it was all removal and draw, which you probably didn't need to win the game anyway. Hey, safe play. I'll take it. I think it worked out very well in this case. All right, Pyroblast drawn.
That's 28 damage. But Ally Armorsmith on board. Still have a hero power that generates 2 effective health per turn.
Is there another Frostbolt in the deck?
I believe
as well
there's
as
one
another
more.
Primordial Glyph.
I believe there's 1 more Primordial Glyph, and there should be 1 more Frostbolt, so... Yeah, drawing with this Loot Hoarder, you have to find a situation where you can start setting up a line that, in your mind, leads you to victory. And you're working with pretty good information here because Peru has no cards in hand. They're just playing things as they come off the top of the deck. You've already seen 1 shield block. This is the second Ally Armorsmith, so you can start to piece together what has to happen for you to win, and that's pivotal when you're looking to get the win as Freeze Mage. Cora, I saw your eyes light up when the Medivh's Valet comes up, because, yeah.
It's 3 damage.
Yeah.
Might as well be a Frostbolt at this point.
So Viper Pro does see some daylight here, has to figure out how he wants to deal with this. Basically, does he spend a Fireball on that Ally Armorsmith? Does he think this game is going to take more than like 2 turns to close out? Slams Pyroblast. He knows he has to do it eventually anyway.
The wheels are turning in my head. So eventually, you Blizzard the Armorsmith, restrict that to 2 armor gain this turn, plus an additional 2 from the hero power. You can go Fireball, Fireball, Medivh's Valet. You're gonna need at least 2 2 more turns.
Some pretty underwhelming taunt options there, but Dire Horde Hatchling is what you go with. Certainly the best of that pick. And, again, adorable artwork.
And more importantly, Sulfurous in hand. Stonehill Defender was that 7th taunt needed to finish the quest.
Yeah, but that does bring us to a point now. We were talking about at the onset of this game how Sulfurous can be used to close out the game via the Hero Power Die Insect, but in this particular situation, you're not equipping it. You are not giving up Tank Up.
Yeah, it is actually a liability right here.
I wish it was Tank Up.
Oh, Rob, giving me the sad memories.
Yeah, you're not giving that up here. You just want to generate armor. Again, you have Ally Armorsmith that's giving you 2 armor a turn, hasn't been dealt with. You have your Hero Power, which gives you 2 armor per turn. We see now Kishtar has 23 effective HP and, well, 21 damage in hand for Viper Pro.
I wonder.
Arcanologist, not really what he wants to see here. Maybe the upside is that you can play the Arcanologist to thin out your deck, draw the Ice Barrier, but...
Okay, so if you go Blizzard, Fireball, Medivh's Valet, or Hero Power, then next turn you get double Fireball. Maybe you draw Frostbolt.
Excuse me, you are on fire.
An incredible discovery.
Okay, so this is important to note. It stops the damage coming in, but it also stops the Ally Armorsmith from generating health. So you're accomplishing 2 things here, one of which you absolutely care about. The other, you're just like, I'm either going to win or I'm not.
Yeah.
So the damage is probably not as relevant as the health that Ally Armorsmith would have generated left unchecked.
I don't know, Rob. This is going to be close.
So, okay. Jab with me here. You got 22 health.
Yeah.
18 damage in hand.
Plus
You
Hero
get-
Power,
yeah,
19 over 2 turns.
Second Primordial Glyph. Pyroblast.
Well, if you needed Pyroblast, you would need an additional... Well, no, because 6, 12, 18 Pyroblast, yeah, that'd be 28 over 2 turns.
But you pretty much have to draw it next turn. It has to come up. You're running out of ways to stretch that damage. And again, the Warrior's Hero Power is just naturally outpacing yours. If you were a Hunter, this would be different.
Yeah.
You'd also be better.
Okay, Rob, settle down. We may see some Hunters later on.
Ooh, I hope so.
Well, guys are really taking their time, and rightfully so. This is a very close game, and there are high stakes indeed.
I've seen enough Quest Rogue lately to where I'm willing to just slow things down a bit and just have like a back and forth chess match. So this is fine by me, and just like seeing a Blizzard drawn. That stops the Ally Armorsmith.
Can't be more than 2 or 3 cards left in deck for Viper Pro. We're assuming one of them is Primordial Glyph.
What to do?
Could be wrong.
I think the Blizzard actually does make a difference here
Yeah.
in terms of it could Pyroblast off the... Yeah, Pyroblast off the Glyph would still do it. Over 2 turns?
You'd still need an additional 2 turns. Yeah, because
Yeah.
Kishtar's only at 22.
So
That
if you
would be
Blizzard
28
this turn,
burn.
if you Blizzard this turn,
Fireball
Primordial Glyph,
face.
Pyroblast is still lethal, I think. Assuming a second shield block doesn't come off the top.
Well, if you Blizzard this turn, you can only get in 7 damage max with Fireball Hero Power, and then Pyroblast off top is an additional 10. So that's not enough. You're still going to
Okay.
need 2 turns after this to be able to just fit in all of the mana if you get something good off of Primordial Glyph. And that's a big if at this point.
I have an axe to grind.
And meanwhile, Kishtar is just sitting there like, huh? Well, I guess we're waiting to see what's on that second Glyph.
There's
Okay,
the Frostbolt.
there's Frostbolt.
18 for Kishtar. Viper Pro has 16 damage.
Do you just ping the Ally Armorsmith here?
Yeah, over Pinging Face, yeah. Because it would be removing 1 damage, essentially.
What
Or
to
removing
do?
1 armor.
What to do?
More.
You just let the rest of it rip?
Yeah. You just got to go for it and hope that Primordial Glyph, if that's the last card in Viper Pro's deck.
All right, this is going to be a photo finish. This is really exciting here. Yeah, it
Well,
could even be Fireball.
Yeah, Fireball or Pyroblast with the discount would be playable off of the Glyph.
It could be Fireland's Portal.
It could be. Anything else that deals 5 damage in the Mage class. Greater Arcane Missiles that all go face.
Now, one thing I do want to point out, we saw one Cone of Cold. That's
did.
not usually in the deck. What do you cut? It's not, you don't cut second Primordial Glyph, right?
I don't know.
No, you don't.
Do you normally play 2 barriers?
I normally play 2 barriers.
Then I think probably 1 barrier is the cut.
Okay, yeah, because we've only seen the one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. I was going to say, we like build it up and then it just gets to like the...
And it's ice barrier. Okay.
It's second
well,
barrier. we sold you in the audience.
on the possibility of a lethal.
Yeah, it's what I would call a vintage Skamaz.
It's a carefully crafted Skamaz indeed.
Yeah, get all the chat. They're like sitting there, they're glued to their screens, like, how's this gonna end? And it's second ice barrier,
Ice
just
barrier.
womp womp. All right, so Kishtar choosing not to pop the block here.
Still can with Sulfurous and
All right, here we go.
Power.
Show me Primordial Glyph. Show me. Show me that bird.
Well played.
No, he's gonna be one off. That's Frostbolt.
No.
It was the one thing that immediately came to mind that didn't do it.
Oh my goodness. Kishtar will be perpetually out of reach.
Oh, I let it fly anyway. You've earned it. This is that moment where you say, you know what, Frostbolt, get in there. Let's show him how close we were.
This was a nail biter.
Yeah, this matchup was at one point really like, some of the pro players were talking it was like 90-10 back in the day. This matchup now, this just goes to show you how 2 players playing at a really high level, how close this can get.
Well, I do want to point out, Kishtar is a streamer. He's not a competitive player usually, and he seemed a bit nervous. It seemed like definitely on that last turn, there was a bit of a fumble for him in not popping block, missing out on 8 mana usage. It just seemed like maybe that wasn't the best showing for him, but ultimately he did get that win, and it was a much closer game than I think we expected, but it was certainly a good one.
Yeah, we saw the celebration from Kishtar, and again, he, as you pointed out, he advertises himself more as a streamer who likes to have fun. He likes to enjoy himself. He's not necessarily on that competitive side,
Yeah.
and I do wonder about that well played that came out at the end. I think that was the
he
well
thought
played.
he lost.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
the
he
well
thought
played.
it was over. I think he thought second Pyroblast was in hand for sure.
That's the well played of a, well, if this is how I'm going to go out, you know, we played well. It was an honorable game.
That's a I screwed up, well played, immediately squelch your opponent.
No,
Because
you don't squelch.
I squelch every time.
All right,
If
well,
I mess up, I'm squelching.
all right, so Peru now up 1-0 in this series. That was a really good game, I believe, personally, to open up this series on. Very enjoyable. And again, this really just dials in how much this matchup is not a sure thing anymore.
It really isn't. It used to be one of the most polarizing matchups in the entire game, and now the mage just has access to Primordial Glyph, which makes a huge difference. Arcanologist and Medivh's Valet, actually, we saw the 3 damage really matter in this game, and Warrior, the loss of tank up certainly hurts.
All right, well, we're going to head into match number 2. It's going to be Nandieb versus Another C. Now, Nandieb will be on Shaman, and Another C will be on the Warrior. I got to point out something that I think is ridiculous.
Okay.
There was a long period in Hearthstone the last year where Thrall was at the very top of ladder. He was at the very top of tournament. It wasn't a question of, you know, if you ban the Shaman. Of course you're banning the Shaman in tournament play. It's, you know, it's Tunnel Trog, it's Totem Golem, but this is a totally different situation now where Thrall is frankly probably in the bottom 3 in a lot of players' picks in terms of overall power level. And it's not because, you know, Elemental Shaman is a perfectly reasonable deck. It's great on ladder. I've talked to actually some people at Blizzard who that's what they were playing this month. But it's one of those things where compared to everything else, it's just not as powerful anymore.
I think that is great to see, not only because, of course, you know, Thrall was on top for so long, but because when you have such a diverse meta where Elemental Shaman, which is a perfectly viable deck, is at the bottom of the power rankings, I think that says something about the health of the game at this point. And Journey to Ungoro has had everything to do with that. And here we can see Nandieb and Another C. Nandieb, 2 people in that image, could possibly be a teammate.
Yeah, I have to imagine it's a teammate, I would imagine, with the rules. Now, Another C on comms with the rest of the team, presumably, so he's going to have the advantage of their knowledge and their perspective as this goes on. But I do want to touch briefly on that because I know when I'm playing Hearthstone, you know, at the office and I'm just trying to like play on lunch and I'm just jamming out a game and then someone comes up and starts talking to me and I'm trying to figure out all my turns in the span of a short window.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking like, Bill, go away. Bill, be quiet. Leave me alone. I kind of wonder, you know, in that setting, having never played in a team format before. Is that something where you think it's all advantage, or do you think there's potential liability in terms of differing opinions?
I mean, honestly, it depends on, it's a person-to-person basis. Some players really thrive when they're able to bounce ideas back and forth, and, four brains are better than one in that situation. But there's a lot of players who really just, they need to be silent. They need to be inside their own heads, really going through all of the possibilities. That's where they really shine. So, some teams, four people might be a liability. For some, it may be an advantage.
Yeah, we actually saw as recently as Trinity Series, one of those moments that really stands out is Luminosity Gaming playing together, Frozen driving, Frozen playing Freeze Mage, with Shocky on Zalae, basically his functional boom bots on either side of him, giving him feedback, and they're having a disagreement on what to do. And at some point, Frozen's just like, no, you know what? It's Freeze Mage. I play Freeze Mage. I'm going to drag the mouse that's in my hand over to this Frost
And I'm
Golem.
going to make the decisions.
Right, so, that is something to consider as you're watching this. That's a big point is, is every play being made in total harmony? Or is there potentially argument? But we're going to go ahead and hop into this one. It is going to be what looks to be Aggro Shaman versus Pirate Warrior. Now, it's tough to say because some of the Elemental Shaman packages, which, aren't really traditional aggression deck, they're more just kind of like beatdown decks over time, still run the Pirate package. But we know what Pirate Warrior is.
Yes, we do, Rob. Pirate Warrior is a deck that everybody thought would be right up at the top going into Journey to Un'Goro, and I think most were pleasantly surprised when, yes, it was strong, but most people were electing not to play it in favor of Quest Warrior. So to see Pirate Warrior here, yes, it's great to see diversity, but not much changed with Pirate Warrior post Journey to Un'Goro. It's pretty much the same deck we saw. Maybe some of the Galaka Crawlers added, but not much difference.
I'd make the argument that it's actually functionally a bit weaker because Finley's no longer available,
Yeah.
so you can't go into those absolutely nutty hero powers. You can't get Life Tap, you can't get Steady Shot, and the introduction of Galaka Crawler, I mean, I wanted to test this out myself, so I spent a night, I was just playing Pirate Warrior, and sometimes you get Nazat's first mate, you just go right into a perfect curve, you just absolutely beat down your opponents, and life is great, and you're like, wow, Pirate's life for me. And then sometimes there's just crabs everywhere, just coming out of any location and just eating your pirates, and you're like, this sucks. I am not playing this deck anymore.
Well, another C disagrees.
Well,
He's
it's still
ready.
a powerful deck. I'm definitely... I think, if anything, it's a testament to how good the deck was initially, when you can still have Finley rotate out, and you can have Galaka Crawler introduced, and this deck is still one you feel confident bringing to tournament. I don't necessarily want to quote the Tempo Storm meta snapshot
please do.
as the gospel, but it's still up there ranked as a top-tier deck. So, again, if anything, it just speaks to how powerful the deck was before.
Well, going up against what is an Elemental Shaman build with the Jade package sort of splattered in, just Jade Lightning, Jade Claws, and Aya. Yes, there are pirates in the early game. It's not aggressive like we have been seeing with previous Shaman decks, because ultimately Tunnel Trog and Totem Golem are gone. Yes, you can run South Sea Deckhand with patches for your Jade Claws, but it's really just as a response to other aggressive decks like the Pirate Warrior. It does not define your own deck anymore like it used to.
I mean, you still have Flame Tongue Totem, so you can have those explosive openings, but yeah, to your point, it's far fewer in between that you actually get those explosive openings, and you're more relying on the strength of the Elemental suite, and Shaman specifically has Kalamos the Primal Lord, which, as your class-specific Elemental goes, is a pretty decent one.
It's incredibly flexible. Against a deck like Pirate Warrior, for instance, Kalamos can heal your hero for 12, or it can deal 3 damage to your opponent's entire board, or it can just deal 6 damage to their face and kill them.
Or that other fourth one that I don't think anyone's clicked, because they're like, I don't need a board full
summon
of...
1/1s to fill your board. It's Onyxia cosplay. But if we can even get to turn 8, I think that Peru will be happy about that. Considering they drew Patches in the mulligan. Patches is terrorizing even the Un'Goro meta.
Yeah, now I want to call out with the Elemental Shaman. When I was looking at, where Shaman had arrived in Journey to Un'Goro, I was just kind of looking over community lists, and I want to shout out specifically, UK player Boar Control, recently of Torpedo Gaming, who put out a list on Twitter, and I got to playing it, and it's extremely consistent, and it looks like it's what Peru is playing. The only difference I've seen so far is Lightning Storm, which I don't believe Board Control's list was running. I think it was just the 2 Maelstrom portals. But it's a deck on ladder that has very few like linear matchups, I'd call it, or direct counters. You can kind of, sometimes if you're playing against Quest Road, you can get that Flame Tongue start. You can get the Pirates going. So I do really like this list, and I think it's a great one for ranked play. I just haven't really seen anyone be super successful with it in a tournament setting.
Does that list run any form of healing other than Kalamos? Is there Jinyu? Is
Hot
there
Spring Guardian.
Hot Spring Guardian?
Two
okay.
of them, yep.
So 2 Hot Spring Guardians, which do heal for 3 apiece. That may potentially make a difference. It's also a taunt minion. So potentially that could sway this matchup, but you'd have to draw it first for Peru. And here their opening hand is heavy and just not valuable for them right now. There's nothing that they can really do here.
Yeah, the second Maelstrom portal here is just really kind of like, well, I'm sure there's a universe where I wanted this. It's not this universe. I mean, sometimes against Pirates, you would have those openings where it was just 1 health minions, and you would actually keep Maelstrom portal because it's very intuitive. But we did see the South Sea Captain early on, which took patches out of range of that Maelstrom portal. So pretty good chance it actually sits kind of dead in hand for a while. And we could even see it, just be thrown out as something to please make me a Goldshire Footman. Obviously, tournament attendee. No longer available because it has rotated out with the rest of the Grand Tournament. Yeah, tournament attendee never got his moment, and I'm going to be honest, never will.
Never say never, Rob.
Nope.
Stone Tusk Boar, Rob.
Nope.
Purify, Rob.
Nope. I won't do it. You can't make me believe. If it happens, I will, I don't know, eat my own bow ties. I just won't do it. This has been a meta that's been great for Wisp. To your point, Stone Tusk Boar.
Morose.
A lot of those cards that you kind of put away in the closet, you're like, I'm never gonna see this again. No, they're back. But I just cannot.
You didn't donate them to Goodwill for a reason because you brought them out and you used them at some point, and maybe tournament attendee will find a deck in Wild he can be put in. But right now, Thailand is building their own Arcanite Reapers. And it is going very well for them. An incredible amount of damage in this hand, and for Nandieb and Peru, no way to shut it down at this point.
Yeah, you don't need to build an Arcanite Reaper, or develop one rather, if you just build your own via Fiery War Axe. So just get in the lab, start tinkering. Right now, Another Sea is in frankly just an amazing position. Yeah, we're starting to see Peru kind of get some stuff. Nandieb's developing some really, really unimpactful things on the board, but you're just going to make your Fiery War Axe into a 6-3, and I'm pretty sure you're just hitting him in the face. Maybe there's consideration to getting rid of the Wrath of Air Totem.
Nah.
You've already seen a Maelstrom portal. You're going. That's too much damage. You can actually close this out relatively easily on the next turn if nothing happens.
Yeah, you've got 8 from hand with Corcoran and Heroic Strike. Obviously, a taunt in your way would be kind of sad, but they would also have to kill your entire board at that point. So Another Sea just setting up a 2-turn lethal here, and a wise Nathan Zamora once told me that Amnesiac told him that if you can set up a 2-turn lethal, do it.
We should just invite him to cast. I feel like we get all of our wisdom from the young William Barton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An intelligent young man indeed.
Absolutely. Now, looking at this situation, Nandieb can clear the entirety of the board, no questions asked. Do you think there is still any daylight for them to claw back into the series with what you can see from Another Sea's hand?
Well, Stoneclaw Totem. Nope, now there's not.
Wow. Pretty open shut case.
It would have had to have been Stoneclaw Totems forever. But now Peru's just dead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and Peru is like, I just can't wait to deal with Quest Warriors. And Thailand's like, well, actually, have some pirates.
Like, I've got elementals. I have Kalamos. This is going to be an exciting game. And Thailand's like, nope, we're just going to get a win. We're going to put ourselves on the board here, tie up this series, and a decisive victory for Another Sea. Looks very happy about it.
Yeah, and I definitely understand why you would be happy. I think, 1-1 is a series. 2-0 feels like it's pretty close to a rout. So good to tie up that, this game and kind of get into the next thing feeling confident because you did at least get that one match under your belt. And again, you're talking to the rest of your team on whatever voice comm platform you're choosing these days. And you're just basically saying, look, we got it. This is now just a best of 3.
Yeah.
Like, head in the game, let's just win.
Yeah, first 2 games are a wash now. Now you're playing a best of 3, and next 2 guys need to step it up for either team.
Yeah. And we talked about how the Pirate Warrior has changed, but it's worth calling out one minor thing, that Shaman has changed as well. Feral Spirit's not in these decks anymore.
All right, so going into game number 3, Uchiha Sasuke and Patoyao, a Rogue Mirror.
Oh, we can only hope it's Quest Rogue, because that means a Quest Rogue will lose. We will 100% definitively know a Quest Rogue will lose if they're both Quest Rogues.
I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
I just thought about it as, well, we need to see 2 Quest Rogues at a time, and is that too much Quest Rogue for any human being to handle?
Now, I want to point out,
I don't know.
You know,
It could be Miracle Rogue.
Patoyao is someone who, plays in a lot of Open Cups, the Siam Weekly Open Cups. He was also just recently at the Japan Major that D2 and Lorinda have been casting. He went 2-2 in it, so respectable result, but he didn't crack a top finish. Uchiha Sasuke, I don't know anything about this person. I couldn't find anything, but his name leads me to make at least one assumption.
Man, I don't know what that could be. I'm not even going to try guessing.
Okay, well, I've never actually seen the anime. I had to ask a friend. I was like, confirm, is that what it's from? And his response was, believe it.
Yep.
Believe it. Which I then had to YouTube, but now I get. I'm turning 30 in like 5 days, so
Rob,
a lot
you're
of this
so
stuff
hip.
kind of goes over my head. But
You're making
yeah.
me feel like I'm the one who's out of the loop.
Am I out of touch, or is it the kids?
Did they just change
It's
shirts?
the kids. Yeah.
Cool.
I wasn't going to touch on it because I don't know why you do that, but they were in yellow shirts before, weren't they?
One was wearing a jersey, and I believe the other was not. But now they're both wearing blue. It looked like there may have been team logos. Cool.
Great.
I like it. I like the spirit.
You win one game, you join a team. That's how life comes at you fast.
Global games.
Call them up. Nandieb, Uchiha Sasuke, great job. You're on a team.
1 win, you're in. All
Yep.
right. But can the power of the blue shirts win them this Rogue Mirror?
All right, before we get into, whether or not this is Quest Rogue, it is worth pointing out that there is another archetype of Rogue out there that I frankly think is 100 million times more fun to play. It is Miracle Rogue. It involves Edwin Van Cleef, 2 Arcane Giants. You've got some Corpse Flowers. It's great. And, well, what is this pirate deck I'm looking at up top?
It's Rogue
It is Rogue.
with some interesting additions. Undercity Huckster, Naga Corsair, Robert Wing.
That is.
I am intrigued.
That is my name. Yeah, so am I. We've been talking about how the meta is still in a state of what most would consider to be upheaval. In Journey to Ungoro, again, set rotation, Hall of Fame rotation. But this is definitely not a deck I have seen anytime recently. I've seen Undercity Huckster in a Rogue deck, and I've seen Naga Corsair in a Rogue deck. I've never seen them both in the same Rogue deck.
Well, we're going to see it now. And, of course, we don't have the list ahead of time, like in the Hearthstone Championship Tour. So knowing exactly what is in these players' decks is going to be impossible. But now we're seeing Murloc War Leader, so I'm starting to put it together. I'm seeing some sort of aggressive rogue with a pirate opener and the Finja package. But there's Vile Spine Slayer, and now I just don't know anymore.
Yeah, it's confusing, but I'm excited, and I want to know more.
Do tell, Peru. Do tell.
While we wait for an explanation on that, let's look at Patoyao's hand. We see a Salsi deckhand and 2 Shadow Steps, which, gonna level. That's what you want with Quest Rogue. Cora, tell the fine folks at home what Quest Rogue does.
Well, thanks for asking, Rob. Quest Rogue. If you play 4 minions with the same name, you're rewarded with the Crystal Core. The Crystal Core turns all of your minions permanently into 5/5s. I don't know. I'm looking at 4 cards here, and it's looking like Thailand is going to be able to complete this quest
I mean,
really quickly.
There's still a chance for Peru to just bamboozle them. Just get in there and just win. Give him a heckin' bamboozling.
Yep.
That's your
Do
best
him a
bet.
heckin' bamboozle.
Oh my goodness. This is just... Patches is going to come out too. Ooh.
Forgot about him.
I mean, I don't think Patches is going to be super relevant at this point, but...
I
Because
mean-
you're not going to Shadow Step him back. Because if you do, if you use a Shadow Step on that Zalsi deckhand, and you use a Shadow Step on Patches, immediately Peru's going to be like, this is either really, really good for us or really bad.
Well, I would say it's just pretty bad. So here, Thailand's going to go ahead and make the right play. And the saving grace for Peru here is that all of Thailand's cards in their hand right now are going to have to go towards completing this quest, leaving them with very little resources. Now, the Rogue has included Mimic Pod since Journey to Ungoro came out. That does provide extra resources. But maybe there's a world where Uchiha Sasuke just runs Thailand out of cards.
Ooh.
Glacial Shard is a menace to society.
Only in this deck. This is, I want to point out, when this deck first was kind of shown in the limelight, you know, it was very much like, it felt like you either got exactly what you needed in the opening hand or you died. But this deck, along with many others, has started to receive some tuning, right? And now it's at a point with inclusions like Glacial Shard, Vanish, that make the deck a lot more consistent. That said, I do want to point out, as much as this deck is one that has made my ladder experience less fun in the last week, it does certainly die to aggressive decks. It can die to Freeze Mage. It's actually a reason why Freeze Mage has become so popular. Aggro Druid, those kinds of decks can actually just destroy the Quest Rogue before it ever gets going. But yeah, when you're playing against it, your condition becomes unrestrained aggression.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, even Quest Warrior has a decent shot against this. Control Paladin is okay. This deck is not infallible by any means. People are just so tormented by it right now that it's becoming public enemy #1 in everybody's mind. But it does have weaknesses.
Yeah, meanwhile, Quest Warrior's like, yeah, let's talk about that guy. Don't talk about, I'm a fun deck. I'm great. Life's great. All right, well,
I mean, we're starting to piece together what Peru is playing. It looks cool.
the journey below inclusion.
I think that was the Swashbuckler.
Okay. So it was
I believe that came off of an early Swashbuckler. Yes.
okay, good. I was gonna say that would have just killed it for me because I'm like, okay, I don't know what we're doing anymore.
I love Journey Below. You know what? I played Jade Rogue to Legend last season. I tried it out a little bit this season. You throw in Journey Below, the N'Zoth package, Aya Blackpaw. It's a fun deck. Is it great? No. Is it what they're playing? No. And wisely so.
No, I mean, I love the card. For the record,
It's an awesome
Journey
card.
Below is awesome. It's just one of those things where I wouldn't really understand what was going on in this particular deck, which seems more geared towards, I would say, tempo and aggression. I mean, Murloc Warleader pretty much tells you. First of all, you never want to draw the Murloc Warleader. You want it off Finja. So Finja is swimming around somewhere in this deck. Pun not intended. But he's swimming around somewhere to draw those Murloc Warleaders, presumably draw Bluegill Murlocs, not Bluegill Warlocks. But there it is. There's the Crystal Core, and yeah, from here on out, all of Pataya's minions are going to be 5/5s, and as you pointed out, maybe the only saving grace here for Peru is that Thailand's hand is reasonably small.
Yeah, but now you have Nox Engineer to cycle.
They don't know that. They just see 2 cards.
Yes.
You got to be an optimist. In
And
this
like
situation.
maybe both of them are preparation.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, that's the thing about this deck. As much as I've been kind of, giving it a bad rap here, it does have clunky situations where it's a lot of spells. That said, you've seen 2 Shadow Steps, so it's kind of one of those things where you're like, well, those aren't in there. So from there on out, you're trying to figure out what spells are even in. And this is one of those decks where, similar to Freeze Mage, the win condition is so defined that you're not really teching in like random stuff. No Gluttonous Oozes, no Eater of Secrets. You're not really designing your deck to deal with other things so much as you just want everyone to have to deal with your deck.
Well, it's a deck that you're essentially playing against yourself for the first 4 turns or so until you complete your quest. Like, you might as well be swapping in a game of solitaire, playing that, and then eventually when you win, then your quest is completed. Like, what your opponent's doing isn't really affecting you, except in the case of, like, Glacial Shard freezes.
I want to point out another Z is a big MOBA guy. He's a big Blizzard gamer in general, but he actually never got into playing MOBAs professionally because he felt like he didn't want to deal with the drama that joining a team brings. This is perfect for him. He's got his deck. He's, probably just playing it alone, as you said, kind of solitaire style, and this is exactly where he's in a Zen happy place. Which Peru is not allowed to join him in because this is just a grim situation.
Yeah, grim is a kind way to describe it. The Quest Rogue, very
Nightmarish.
hit or miss. That's a good one too. Very hit or miss, but when you hit hard. And it's just incredibly difficult for your opponent to deal with unless they're a pure aggression deck, which I think the Rogue from Peru was actually decent at dealing with. but it just seemed like a pretty poor draw. And yeah, Bile and Tidehunter, an interesting inclusion, not necessarily automatic in the Quest Rogues.
Yeah, but recently put in to help shore up those matchups where you're playing against Pirate Warrior, where you're playing against Hunter, Aggro Druid, because, you know, that small taunt, as small and unintimidating as that slime looks, when it's a 5/5 or if it has to come out earlier, it does at least put a small speed bump, and you need to buy anytime you can. And obviously it plays to the condition of the deck, which is what I was talking about a little bit earlier of you're going to play it out, it's going to make 2 5/5s, so it lines up perfectly with what you want to do. If you bounce it using any of the various bounce mechanics in the deck, you get extra value. So natural inclusion, and again, it helps reduce the odds that, you know, chance and randomness deny you from completing the quest.
So a very linear game plan for Thailand from here on out. 2 damage off of lethal this turn, actually.
I want to say, I really want to say this could get interesting, but to be honest, because there's no card in Peru's hand that's just going to do 5 damage and sweep the board, yeah, Thailand's on 1 card, but all it needs to be is another Stone Tusk board, right? Something with charge, it's a 5/5.
That's going to be it.
Yeah. Yeah, Uchiha Sasuke and Nandiab just going to, you know, give it some time, make sure, check that there's nothing they can do. They don't even have the luxury of maybe backstabbing an Undercity Huckster to see if they can find something else from their opponent's deck, which even if they did, what you are going to get from that Huckster is from the opponent's deck. So you're probably not going to get anything that's super useful for you because you're not playing Quest Rogue.
Well, it's from your opponent's class.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Undercity Huckster gives you a random card from your opponent's class, which in this case was Rogue, so it was from your class as well, which is how the Journey Below came into hand there. But no matter where you cut it, it was just not going to work in this case. Did not shape up well against the Quest Rogue, which got off to an admittedly very good start.
Yeah, Thailand's opening hand was, you know, we were talking about what is the win condition of the deck? Bounce a minion a few times, play it 4 times, and we saw the opening hand, Shadow Step, you know, is Salsi deckhand, Shadow Step, Youthful Brewmaster,
Gadgets and Ferryman. Oh, no, it was second Youthful Brewmaster.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, I ruined it.
So, I mean, that's pretty much what you want there, and then you draw into some more minions, yeah, and then you just go. I would be very interested to see what exactly Peru is playing in that other deck, but looks like we won't know, at least for now, for the coming weeks. But taking a look at the matchup, we see now Thailand is up 2-1. They just need to secure 1 more win. It's going to be Matt Gee playing the Paladin versus Izzy on the Hunter. And these are 2 classes that I was saying earlier have both benefited from Journey to Un'Goro.
Yeah, the Hunter probably more than any other class, simply because before Un'Goro it was not playable. And now you're seeing at least the mid-range variant of Hunter getting quite a few different versions, and it's become quite a reliable deck once again.
Yeah, there was a point where Rexar was tormenting everyone from rank 25 to the highest heights of Legend for like a year and a half. It was great. You could just equip your Eagle Horn bow and you're just going. You're doming people in the face. You have explosive traps, Leroy Jenkins. It's, honestly, I get a little shiver just thinking about the old Starving Buzzard, Unleash the Hounds. It's a great
I think
time.
everybody does. If they were on the receiving end of it, that hurt.
It was a great time.
It's not good.
But just recently, there was like a 3-month period where Rexar went on sabbatical.
He was on the milk cartons. People could not find him anywhere.
We don't know where he was, but he was gone.
Poor guy.
You know, and people tried to bring him back, and he's like, it's not time. My return is prophesized. Soon I will return. And Journey to Un'Goro comes back, and Rexar riding on top of a giant dinosaur. He just appears, and he's like, hey, who likes Houndmaster?
Who likes Rat Pack?
Yeah, not joking for a second. We talked about this last week. Totem Golem was such a brute.
Yeah.
That card single-handedly isolated Hunter from really being relevant. And the more tools Shaman got, the more Hunter kind of waned. So now Totem Golem and Tunnel Trog going away, Rexar's back, and you know, he's finding great matchups just across the board.
Well, the one weakness that Hunter has always had, no card draw. Yep. Hunter still does not have any way to draw cards within the class. Now that Quickshot has rotated out, you don't even have that as a last chance ability to draw a card from an empty hand. So once the Hunter has been run out of cards, there's a lot of 1-drops and 2-drops that are very weak top decks for the class, and it is easy for the Paladin to take advantage of that if they're able to get the Hunter to that point. Now, if the Hunter has a very strong early curve, goes into Savannah Highmane, which everybody knows and fears because, if Svanaheimen hits your face, Hunter wins the game. It's just the old adage. So if the Hunter is able to curve out very strong, then the Paladin is going to be on the back foot. But if they get a bit of a weaker start, the Paladin runs them out of cards. I'd say the Paladin has a great shot in this matchup.
Yeah, Paladin has absolutely profited from the most recent set, and what really speaks to the strength of that class right now is all the different ways you can play it. If you go and play ranked play for just a whole day, you just sat there, you would probably see 3 to 4 different Paladin variants. Murlocs have become very prevalent in Paladin, especially Hydrologist.
Yeah.
This is a card people weren't necessarily sure on, but Hydrologist has such a myriad of uses in terms of the secrets you can pull off it that, again, and this is the important part, you don't have to run in your deck.
That is the important thing, because obviously Paladin secrets, they're 1 mana, they're relatively ineffective in a lot of situations. They just don't do much. And, obviously Secret Paladin reigned supreme for a very long time, and the secrets, when synergized together, did perform very well, but now you lost Avenge, you lost Competitive Spirit, there's just not much that they can do. But a Hydrologist in your deck that you can pull off of Curator, just play on turn 2, combined with Getaway Kodo, Noble Sacrifice, Redemption. There's a lot of possibilities for these secrets now that before, if they had to take up a slot in your deck, it was just never worth it.
I mean, speaking of cards that weren't seeing use for the longest time, just cards that were absolutely written off, Eye for an Eye is relevant.
Eye for an Eye is relevant,
Let
people.
that sink in. 2017, Eye for an Eye, a relevant card against Freeze Mages, against Time Warp Mages. Yeah, there's actually a few different
Stone
uses.
Tusk Boar, Purify, Eye for an Eye. This is the meta we're living in, people.
Yeah.
Journey to Ungoro has revolutionized Hearthstone by giving us old cards that we never knew we wanted.
Yeah, it's like one of those things where you got a gift like 3 years ago and you didn't like it. So you just like gift wrapped it and you give it to someone who's like, no, this is new. Stone Tusk Boar, this is a new card from Ungoro.
This is a new
it's
card.
great.
This is a good card. You should play this card.
Well, speaking of playable cards, we see a bunch of them because these are some of the heavy hitters actually in front of us that really make up these decks right now. We see the Hunter has the old 1, 2, 3, which is your Rexar.
Snappy.
That's what you want. You just want to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maybe at 7 you start kind of.
You got Swamp King Dread for 7 if you're feeling really, really fancy that day.
Right. But on the bottom there, we see Mak-Gi piloting the Paladin for Thailand, and we can see he is definitely running, he's running Murloc War Leader, so presumably there's more Murlocs in there. He's running Curator, he's running Stonehill Defender, and if this is the deck I think it is, you're going to see it top out at 2 Forbidden Healings, Tyrion Fordring, and the deck goes the distance. If it goes late game, you probably lose. That said, I mean, Hunter sticks to the board these days.
It does. Hunter is a nuisance to deal with. Okay, so here we're seeing some more Murlocs, Rob.
Yeah, this is. I take it back. There's probably no Forbidden Healings. There might still be a Tyrion Fordring, but this deck can go, and it can go in a hurry.
This is a version of Paladin that I've been seeing quite a bit of, and the Gentle Megasaur. It Battlecry adapt all Murlocs. Rockpool Hunter, obviously, is a new Murloc from Ungoro. Give a friendly Murloc +1/+1. All of these together with some of the Murlocs that maybe you never really wanted to play, but they're not bad, come together, you swarm the board early on, you kill them quick, but it can also, like you said, go the distance.
Yeah, this is one of those situations when you used to play against Murlocs, and it wasn't a common thing because Murlocs have really, up until Finja, never necessarily had like a great zenith point in their career. But you had to at least be wary of Murloc.
Old Murkai, Rob.
Okay, you know what? You got me there. Murloc War Leader was like the one card you're like, all right, well, I can't let him have too many Murlocs. Cold Light Seer, yeah, they're getting health, but maybe you have a plan for that. But the ability for Murloc War Leader to just suddenly change the dynamic of damage you're about to take, you always had to play around it. But Gentle Megasaur is like that second threat now where it can come down. It can adapt, all of them to have +3 attack. Adapt them to have Wind Fury, Poisonous. You have to constantly be wary of how many Murlocs you're leaving on the board, even if they're not necessarily the more intimidating ones.
The teeth I have.
Thailand took quite a while in the first turn to consider, I believe, a coin hero power, which would have challenged the Fiery Bat and led into the Rockpool Hunter on turn 2. Ultimately decided against it, figured that coin is more valuable than just an early removal on Fiery Bat.
Yeah, I think when you make that decision, you're thinking, okay, do I believe they're going to go 1, 2, 3? Right? It's because if they do, then things get really hairy for you.
Yeah.
But if you live in a world where you say, okay, I need to keep the coin, that's a valuable resource, and maybe they missed the 2-drop and they just hit the hero power button. That said, if you were watching the hand, you probably saw that they didn't mulligan anything. And that's where hand reading becomes a very important skill, because what does a hunter want in their opening hand? That's what you have to consider. And they want a good curve. That's the strength of the deck.
Yeah, if they keep everything in opening mulligan, you have to assume it's 1-2-2 or 1-2-3. That's pretty much what you're going to be seeing here. Two interesting cards actually coming into the hand for Izzy: Grievous Bite and Bitter Tide Hydra. This is looking more and more like Hot Form's early Ungoro Hunter list, which included 2 Hydras and 2 Grievous Bites. I don't know. It may very well be different than that exact list. I would expect it to, but still interesting that they decided to go this route.
Yeah, those are 2 cards that the jury's still kind of out on, whether or not we think that they're necessarily the cards that you want to run. Like most of these standard mid-range hunters, and it feels weird to say because we're still so young into Ungoro, but most of the mid-range hunter builds right now are not including Bitter Tide Hydra. They're definitely not including Grievous Bite, so very interested to see. Peru's already shown they're down to make some weird decks.
I mean, if you're not playing against a shaman that has Volcano, that's a 5-mana 8/8 right there that rolls right into Savannah Highmane. That's a very strong curve.
I mean, I feel bad because last week I was like, Bitter Tide Hydras are great. And then, your opponent your opponent just runs those Greater Arcane Missiles like they do. Except, you got them off like a Primordial Glyph, I think it was.
Semantics.
Yeah, but Primordial Glyph, look, bottom line, 5-mana 8/8 hits them very hard.
Mm-hmm.
We see the Crawler in Maki's hand. That's that's obviously a nod that he's expecting to run into Pirates. And, even though the Galaka Crawler doesn't have the synergy with Paladin that it obviously has with Hunter, it's still in its own right a powerful card, a pretty unobtrusive 2-drop, good stats for what you want at that spot.
I just feel like more people are playing Galaka Crawler than are actually playing Pirates at this point. It seems like if you're running Pirates, it's either Pirate Warrior or South Sea Deckhand and Apaches.
More often than not, you're on the open ocean and you actually run into a boat full of crabs.
Yes.
Than a boat full of pirates. So
sure,
that is certainly how it's starting to feel these days. But it's
Poor
there for a
Uther
reason.
on the open ocean. Whew.
Yeah.
How did he end up there?
If I don't get a Photoshop with him in an eye patch and a pirate hat, I'm gonna be really sad. And we have a lot of broadcast time left, so somebody in Twitch chat.
We've got like 10 weeks in this first stage.
Yeah.
I think Uther with an eye patch can be done.
Just tweet myself or Cora, both of us, with this picture.
Yeah, put me on
so
it.
we can. Yeah, I was gonna say, so we can have it as like a phone background.
Okay, so I really like this. Izzy decided to go with Grievous Bite on the Murloc War Leader, which you then trade your Kindly Grandmother into. You want that Death Rattle active. 3/2 is bigger than 1/1, and you get to slip in a hero power, saving the kill command in hand. Really nice. You gotta weave those hero powers in, Rob.
Yeah. Hey, you're preaching to the choir there. Now, Maki has a pretty spicy turn here if he wants to use the coin. I actually really like this. Go for it. Bring out that Stampeding Kodo. Instead, chooses to go the Consecration. The only reason I don't like this as much, it's a perfectly valid play, but the only reason I don't like it as much is because you're not developing anything onto the board, and you're losing out that of on your ability to Equality Consecrate if it comes to later. Would have liked to see the Kodo, even if the Fiery Bat ping hits the Kodo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that point, you still have a 3/4 on board, facing down a 3/2.
Yeah, I can definitely see where that would be a line they could go with. It just really seems like Maki has committed to saving this coin from very early on.
Buy dinner after. That's just money in the bank.
Maybe it is. Stampeding Kodo is not really going to get much better going into the late game. Actually, it gets significantly worse because Hydra comes down, Highmane comes down on 6. You have to expect that at this point. And from then on, Kodo is really just not a card you're going to be playing. So, yes, Consecration. Now you break up your Equality Consecration combo. I don't know. It's a tough turn.
Facing down the Bitter Tide Hydra, is there any world whatsoever, Cora, where you Equality Hero Power this turn?
I was thinking about it.
What else do you
I
have?
was really thinking about it. Equality Hero Power, if you really want to be safe, you can coin Galaka Crawler. Then you give up your ability to coin Curator on the following turn, but you can Megastore Hero Power. I mean, you need to deal with this Hydra.
Well, Maki's got to decide something here, and it looks like he's just roping out.
Oh, maybe some technical difficulties there. We will let you know as soon as we know exactly what is going on.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of stutter in the frame there, and he's kind of shrugging, so we'll have to see what happens here. But let me tell you, a way to not win a game is to just pass turn when Bitter Tide Hydra's on the board.
Well, and there was 8 from Hydra, 5 from Kill Command, 3 from Bow in hand, so it was not lethal this turn, but there could have been an additional 8. It would have been very close.
Yeah, we're still waiting to see what happened with Maki there, because, again, even facing down a tough turn like that, you have to imagine something would have happened as opposed to nothing.
He would have done something.
Right.
It is always better to do something instead of nothing if you still can, and I believe that is the your opponent left, yes. It looks like Maki has disconnected. We will, of course, let you know as soon as we get a ruling on whether or not this will be a replay. Because there was no lethal present for Izzy, I would imagine, but it's looking like maybe not.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens there regardless. Peru is in a very dominant spot there because, as we saw, Thailand had no actual response. We'll have to see if this is in fact going to be how this plays out. Again, to your point, there was no guaranteed lethal. There were outs potentially for Thailand to kind of crawl back into that one, but
I mean, it was certainly
bad.
looking like it was going in Peru's favor. I would have said that Peru was going to win that game from that point, but it's not a guarantee, and you want to give every last opportunity to both teams to pull themselves out of that rut. So yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. It really is.
All right, well, until we hear correction, it sounds like we're going to say that Peru won that one, and that's going to bring us to a tie series, which will lead us into our first ace match of the night.
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, we're at the mercy of technology, and in some cases, it's just a difficult situation. But it does look like that one is going to go over to Peru. Like we said, I think the Hunter had that one on lock, but we'll never know now because it is going to be a game win for Peru. And like you said, our first ace match of the night: Uchiha Sasuke with the Druid and Viper Pro on the Priest.
Yeah. So in the conversation of classes that have kind of gone under their own renaissance, Priest. Anduin has kind of been, a little bullied over the years, and
Poor guy.
you always want to play Anduin. One day you wake up on a Saturday, you're like, I've got like 11 hours, nothing to do. You know what? I'm gonna play Priest. I'm just gonna make this awesome. We're gonna mind control something. Like we're gonna get there, and it really hasn't panned out. Now, Dragon Priest just recently, obviously a deck that worked really well, was more kind of curve centric. The beat down, you had the Discover, and a lot of dragons rotated out, but it's still viable. But the thing is, there's actually so many different ways you can play Priest now that are all like at least legend level worthy. Purify Priest, not a joke. Control Priest, not a joke.
Still a thing.
Divine Spirit Inner Fire.
It's a thing
legitimately horrifying deck. So there's a bunch of different ways you can play the deck, including Dragon. The pieces are still there. You're missing some of those early minions that kind of put a lot of board pressure, but can still get done. So I'm very excited to see what we actually get out of this Priest.
Dragon at Operative is actually just good enough to build an entire deck around, it turns out. And certainly Lyra the Sun Shard is going to be a common denominator in a lot of these decks. Priest Legendary coming out of Journey to Ungoro. A lot of people were very skeptical about it, but it is in fact very strong. So here we can see Uchiha Sasuke and Viper Pro, both of these players having played before. Now they got to come up to bat again.
Very curious to see what this Priest deck is. Now, for Druid, it's kind of a tale of two decks right now. You're either playing the hyper-aggressive Token Druid, which is going to require the synergies of Mark of the Lotus, Power of the Wild, or you're playing more of that ramp style where you have, as we learned last week, one Jade Blossom.
One Jade
Blossom, and you go into Giant Anaconda, Death Wings, you're using Earthen Scales, which is kind of quietly snuck in as a dark horse, potential MVP for the set for Druid. So we'll have to see how these line up, but I'm really excited because these are two classes which I definitely think are more middle of the pack as the dust is settling, as opposed to, the top tier where you have, I would say, Warrior, Rogue, Hunter, and I would say Mage.
Probably as well.
Paladin's definitely in the conversation, but I would say Druid, Priest, more definitely in the middle of the road.
Yeah, Druid, much like Warrior, has two very different archetypes right now, and Priest is just kind of all over the place. It is a chaotic mess right now, but it's a good chaos.
Yeah.
Because at least Priest has options, and for once, we're just trying to sort of rein it all in and figure out which is the best of these options. Which one of these decks really is the Priest deck that we want to put forward, and in this case, it's looking like it's going to be Dragon Priest.
Yeah, the dead giveaway there is the Draconid Operative. I want to point out Radiant Elemental, absolutely a nuts card. This card to me is one that I slept on really hard. I was just like, well, I don't know if this changes much. But early on in the game, if you get out Radiant Elemental and then Power Word Shield on that, just a 2-mana 5 that reduces the cost of all your spells by 1, Priest, to my knowledge, has never really had the ability to tempo things out, right? They haven't really had the ability to speed up their own clock, and that's often been what has kind of put them in a rough spot. You know, Dragon Priest really kind of worked because of the I would say, I'm trying to think how to word it, the way the stats were spread out on the minions.
Yeah, they were overstated minions with the condition that you needed to have a dragon in hand. But other than Wormrest Agent, which was not a reliable 2-drop, because if you didn't have a dragon in hand, it was just a 1/4, Priest has never had a good 2-drop minion. Like, yes, they've had Mana Geode, which is the same stat line as Radiant Elemental. You're never going to see Mana Geode. But suddenly, you tack Sorcerer's Apprentice onto this Radiant Elemental, and Priest has a lot of cheap spells that then become cheaper, synergize well with each other, and it's giving the Priest a lot of power in the early game.
That just goes to show how thirsty we were for a good
Oh,
Priest
we
2-drop.
wanted it for so long.
We saw Mana Geode and we were like, yes,
This could be
is
good.
it. You're going to heal it. You're going to make 2/2s. Life is awesome. And Mana Geode with its sweet chimey noises was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to save Priest. And then,
I do love its sweet chimey noises.
you know, I do play Mana Geode sometimes and I don't tell my friends.
I pick
just,
it in Arena.
I turn
a
off
lot.
Spectate and I'm just going to
good.
play with my Mana Geode. But yeah, we do see here that Peru is playing that Jade Druid. So
I mean, I believe it. That's what you were saying. If you got 12 hours free, so I'm guessing you just play Anduin on your weekends.
oh yeah.
And I guess you're playing Mana Geode now.
just jam the weekend and just play
Yeah.
nothing but Mana Geode Priest. But we didn't bring up Jade Druid because more and more it's starting to fall off bit by bit. It did lose Bran in the most recent set rotation. So it's not as strong, and there are decks out there that have the inevitability condition that comes much sooner. You
Yeah.
know, again, we were talking about Quest Rogue, Quest Warrior. Really surprised to see Peru go with Jade Druid, but again, so far their lineup has shown that they're not afraid to just do their own thing. You know, they're not watching Brazil, they're not watching Argentina and just copying those lists, and that's frankly what I might have expected when you are, you know, Peru and you're looking to like, well, what do the other countries in, you know, my region do to succeed? But no, they're doing their own thing. They're bringing their own decks. They have their own unique styles, and yeah, I mean, you can argue the last game that it wasn't fully decided, but as you pointed out, it was pretty decided.
It was pretty decided. Certainly this one's still up in the air as it is only turn 2. And yes, Jade Druid is like the redheaded stepchild of the Druid class right now. It's that awkward third that sort of sits on the outside of Aggro Druid and Ramp Druid right now. It's still a very viable deck, but yes, it's lost a lot of power with the rotation of Bran Bronzebeard.
You wish to
Yeah, now we saw the Radiant Elemental just dropped to pretty much, it's either, look, you have Wrath or this lives.
Yeah.
And if it had lived, then, you know, suddenly Cabal Talon Priest is buffing it. It just starts spiraling out of control. Druid still can't deal with some of these health stat lines. So it would have been a pretty reasonable play, but, you know, Wrath was there. And now the Cabal Talon Priest just comes out looking around doing the John Travolta gift thing like, who am I supposed to be buffing? And the answer is nobody.
Hey, 3 mana, 3/4.
Yeah.
Not half bad.
That's a
actually
spider tank.
Just an incredible card.
Rest spider tank sword.
Oh, poor Spider Tank. With Mech Warper, Spider Tank used to be Totem Golem.
Let that sink in.
Whew.
Oof.
All right, so yes, Dragon Priest, a lot weaker. This is actually the battle of the two classes and the two decks, more specifically, that pre-Ungoro were very strong and post-Ungoro have gotten quite a bit weaker.
This is basically that video game boss fight where you had like the two really strong bosses, and then they fight and there's no like final conclusion, and then they meet
Yeah.
10 years older. You know, they're a little older, they're a little worse for wear, but they're like, no, we got to have this final fight, and that's pretty much what this is. Both decks have lost things. Now, yeah, Priest, I would say, has gotten some things. We'll have to see what exactly is in here if they're running Lyra. But what did the Druid get, if anything?
Druid got nothing. It got the 1 mana, give a minion +1/+1, gain armor equal to its attack. But the way that the Druid Priest matchup went pre-Ungoro is Priest would try to tempo out, try to build up big stat lines, and try to kill the Druid before they could develop large golems. Now that the Priest does not have Twilight Whelp, Wormrest Agent, Twilight Guardian, they just lost so much early game that they're not able to tempo out a win, which means, at least to me, the Jade Druid is going to have more time to build up Jade Golems. I don't know. I'm thinking this one could be a little bit tough for the Priest post-Ungoro. And there is Earthen Scales. It is the 1 edition.
Earthen Scales, certainly in its own right, we were talking about it is very powerful what Druid's got from this card. But in terms of like overall, like how attractive is it? Like it's pretty much like getting socks for Christmas, like functional. Yeah, but your opponent basically got Lyra, which is pretty much the equivalent of like an N64 under the tree. You're like, yes!
Functional, but is it fashionable?
I mean,
is
obviously,
it fun?
socks are going to win out potentially long term.
It's not
but,
like bow ties, Rob.
I mean, my mom doesn't actually buy me bow ties, just so we're clear. My mom is very much on the anti-bow tie plan, too.
Oh, dear.
She asks why I dress like a ridiculous clown man, and I say, I don't have to take this, Mom. May I please get off the phone? And then sometimes I get to.
Well, at least you ask her before you hang up. It's very polite of you. That's befitting of a man who wears bow ties.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you talked about how the Priest might have some trouble here. Priest has a lot more cards.
That's true.
Is this really something where, or right now, you still feel like the Druid has the advantage, or is it one of those things where the Priest could potentially creep into this and just win by taking over the board?
The Priest, that's always the way that the Priest is going to win this game. I would say that this is a definitive lead, but it's tentative. It's something that if Peru were to pick up Nourish, they could certainly, draw a lot of cards really quickly and build those Jades up, which they do to get the Nourish, so that's nice. The two Innervates are a bit weak right now, but maybe they help them. Well, nope.
Yogg-Saron!
Okay. Trying to make something of this.
Yogg-Saron is a really cool card that does really cool things.
It's a super cool card.
And why would you include
things.
it? Because Druid has a lot of spells.
Yeah, I mean, Yogg-Saron makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
I think, especially post Ungoro. You need, well, you just need something, and Yogg-Saron makes sense. But second Draconic Operative in hand for Thailand is, it's such a stinking strong card. It is one dragon that, although all of the strongest dragon support from Blackrock Mountain rotated out, you can still build a deck around this singular card.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate summation of the situation with Draconic Operative. Just an absolute menace. Now, in order for the Druid to take out this Priest here and to win the game and to ice out the series for Peru, it is going to have to get Druid off the board. And you're looking at a 5/9 and then also a Radiant Elemental, which, would you leave a Sorcerer's Apprentice on the board? No, absolutely not.
Well, and importantly, Mulch rotated out as well. So there's no hard removal, actually, in the Druid deck now. And there's never been really efficient AoE. The most you had was Azure Drake Swipe, and Azure Drake rotated out. Oh man, Jade Druid, you are hurting now.
That's actually a really good point I hadn't considered. Azure Drake being gone, like Azure Drake Swipe was pretty much one of the ways you broke the back of your opponent by just saying like, all right, I get a 4/4, your board's gone. They don't have that anymore, and it might just come down to Yogg-Saron to clear out that board.
Well, Viper Pro has all the answers that he needs to anything that Uchiha Sasuke can play at this point. Picked up a death off of Shadow Visions for the Ancient of War that just came into hand, and that is going to be backbreaking for Peru if they choose to play it.
All right, well, it's time to get the best deals anywhere. See what happens with Gadgets and Auctioneer, but yeah, to your point, what are you actually drawing that deals with a 5/9, a 5/6, and a 2/5? Thalnos is a start if you get the swipe. Thalnos obviously gonna give it the spell boost that Azure Drake would have, but smaller body.
Yeah, I didn't take into account the rotation of Mulch.
Yeah, that's
actually a huge deal in this matchup.
Now I legitimately
really
wonder, why do you play this deck? What does this deck have going for it now? You've lost Mulch, you've lost Azure Drake. There's some key things you're missing.
It's still the strongest Jade deck, but just because it's the strongest Jade deck doesn't mean it's the strongest deck, period.
Yeah, I really, if Peru ends up losing this, that would be something I would be burning to know, is what the decision was there, especially, when you consider the Rogue deck, when you consider the unique inclusions in that Hunter deck. Who on this team for Peru is sitting down and being like, okay, I'm the critical review. Submit your deck list to me. I'm going to make sure that what's here makes sense, fits into our build, or if that person even exists. Maybe it's just like everybody build two
free
decks.
for all.
Yeah, submit them. It's a really interesting dynamic, and one of my favorite parts about this competitive tournament is essentially how does this all play out, because it's different on a team-to-team basis. You don't have any really super big names in Peru that command competitive respect. Like, yes, Kishtar is a big streamer. Kishtar is very popular on social media. But as a guy who advertises that he plays for fun and not to compete, are you really going to look to Kishtar and say, okay, you're going to be the one to tell me if this deck is good? You know, because when you're playing
Yeah.
ranked play, you start building decks. You're like, this could be good, and then you start jamming things, and you win like maybe half your games. You're like, okay.
Ranked play and competitive play are very different.
Yeah.
They're completely different worlds. And obviously, there's no ban in this format. A ban format would make all the difference. So here you can go up against anything and everything. But still, it just makes me wonder, because Ramp Druid takes just as long to get off the ground, but it seems like it hits harder when it reaches that pinnacle point. When you've got Deathwing Dragonlord, Deathwing Ysera.
Just having Deathwing. Imagine in this matchup if Peru just had Deathwing. That's actually just would solve. I mean, it's not going to win them a
problems.
game,
No,
and it's
but
going to get Shadow Word Death. But it would at least give you a guaranteed way to clear off that board.
How the removal options for Druid are just non-existent now. I mean, yeah, swipe Wrath, but you need to rely on minion combat to remove large minions.
Where?
Or just
feels like
ignore
a-
it and go face, but you don't really have that liberty.
That feels like a guideline. You need minion combat to remove minions from the board. I'm surprised the Innkeeper doesn't say that when you log in.
Minion combat.
Wow.
Minions.
Got some ideas for Team 5 now.
Please do.
Yeah.
I'll take credit.
All right, well, I was going to say Viper Pro probably just could get away with not trading here, but now there's actually no choice. The taunts mean that trades or spells are going to have to be used. We do see that Shadow Word Pain even discounted
Yeah.
in Viper Pro's hand, so we'll be able to get through the Jade Behemoth, but as usual, the minion with 4 attack is going to force the Priest to just deal with it. I don't know if it ends up meaning all that much. Probably not. You've got the ability to heal. You got some pretty big, beefy guys on the board. You've got 5/6s, obviously.
I mean, look at this. So, Uchiha Sasuke is rolling into Eye of Blackpaw, which gives you a 5/5. Ancient of War and Yogg-Sothoth. The Jade Golems are getting really big. I actually really like this from Viper Pro, because you're reaching that point where you can't just keep killing Jade Golems. Eventually they're going to be too big. You're going to run out of removal. You need to put pressure on now, kill them fast. This is the way you're going to do it.
You're basically saying now, okay, Peru, you either have Deathwing or Yogg-Saron, or else you...
Or you're dead wing.
Or you're done, yeah. Ooh.
Okay, I have some serious questions about Sudden Genesis and Yogg-Saron. If you summon a copy of Yogg-Saron, do you have to kill both Yogg-Sarons before the Yogg spell chain ends? Or do you just have to kill the original?
I'm at loss for words on that one, Cor. Honestly, I'm just sitting there like, oh.
Well, regardless.
All right, there's the ice block, like you expect her to have.
Oh yeah, of course.
So you can just get rid of both 7/1s. And I think that's exactly what you do, no questions asked. You heal up your dragons. You just say, okay, do it again. You bought a turn. Let's see it again. Where's the Deathwing at?
You didn't play the Shaman spell that gives your minions Death Rattle, return them to your hand. There's not a third Yogg-Saron here.
Nope.
Not that the second one even did anything.
No, the second one just kind of showed me, like, I'm a Yogg-Saron too, and it's like, well,
I
that's
matter.
great. You don't.
You're like, no, Yogg-Saron. You're like every duplicate that was ever in a sci-fi movie. The original is the important one.
Wow, so that's interesting. Viper Pro electing to not deal with the 7/1. I don't think it's relevant in this
Does it
context.
matter?
Well, no, it doesn't. But from a purely mechanical standpoint,
Yeah.
You would do that, right? You would just deal with it. Like, why wouldn't you?
I mean, you get to develop Priest of the Feast this way, and you get to heal face for 3 with the Shadow Word Death. Plus, your opponent's at 3. I don't think any of their cards can really do anything at this point.
Yeah. No, I don't mean to nitpick. I was just legitimately curious because I feel like
no, I think it's definitely something to think about.
maybe an Earthen Scales is suddenly relevant if you don't
The
deal
thing
with
is, if Ancient of War comes down, I think you'd rather have Shadow Word Death for that. That's
Okay.
probably the big consideration here.
it. You know what? That works for me. My concern was a second Earthen Scales because I don't think we had seen the second one.
Yeah, we haven't, but Thailand actually did see it off of Discovers from
Oh, and you know what? It actually
Dragon
doesn't matter.
Operative,
There's
so they
enough
know
damage.
it's there.
There's enough damage.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
more than enough damage here.
All right, yeah. Then I like that. Gotta deal with the
Peru
potential.
would need Ancient of War, Innervate, Swipe, Innervate, Swipe. And that's too many Innervates. So that's just going to be match
Yeah.
over to Thailand.
Well played.
After a disconnect, we see the well played come out from Viper Pro, the ace match, but we actually see Uchiha Sasuke just gets up, walks away from his computer. Hearthstone's an emotional game. You go 2-5, you are the ace player, and it just doesn't pan out. So congratulations to Thailand. We talked about the question marks about Thailand and realistically about Peru as well. And it's cool to see this match go to 5 and both teams really kind of give it their all. Thailand did win, however, and I think this is one point I want to make, with more conventional decks.
Yeah, definitely decks that you would expect to see post Ungoro. Yeah, Dragon Priest, it was alive pre Ungoro, but it's still proven to be very strong.
It's adapted.
It's adapted. Whereas Jade Druid is something that hasn't really changed much. Like, yay, there's Yoggster on, but it just doesn't do enough anymore, I feel like, to warrant playing it over Ramp Druid if you want heavy minions, or Aggro Druid if you just want to kill your opponent quickly. So it was unfortunate that the disconnect favored Peru, but ultimately Thailand was able to overcome that and take the win.
Yeah, so that is going to complete out that group, actually. We look at the group standings. All of the teams now have played, and let's take a look at how we got here. Kishtar did open up the series with a win. Unfortunately, Peru would lose the next two as another C, and Patoyao took the win on that. Izzy got the win off, what we'd say was kind of a maybe contestable disconnect,
Yeah.
but yeah, Bitter Tide Hydra up, no answer in the hand for Maki, and then Viper Pro closing it out against Uchiha Sasuke. So I want to point it out, not to dog on Uchiha Sasuke, but 2 games, did lose both of them, so I kind of wonder going forward if there's maybe the chance for a shuffle in terms of who's that ace player.
It's definitely possible. You can certainly change all of your decks between rounds. All deck choices, order of players can be alternated between rounds. So, Peru may bring an entirely different lineup, different decks for different people.
Yep.
We're still early into Journey to Ungoro. Players are still, making the rounds of all the different decks and all the classes and learning the ins and outs of these things. And yes, the dust is just starting to settle, but 2 weeks into the Hearthstone Global Games, there's a lot of changes that can be made here.
Yeah, as you pointed out, early into Ungoro and early into the Hearthstone Global Games, but now that all of the teams have played, let's take a look. USA on top, 2-0, no surprises. Thailand, 1-0, Netherlands, 1-1, and Peru, Romania, United Kingdom, all on the bottom half of the group, so they're going to work to fix that if they do want to get out of that group. Any surprises after all the teams have played, looking at, how that group's panned out?
I would say Romania and the United Kingdom were two of the teams, definitely two of the stronger teams, in the group of death, at the risk of sounding biased, because the United States is in the group. But yes, the other teams, Romania, United Kingdom, losing their first matches, it's a bit of an upset. It's something that I certainly think they can still come back. But Thailand taking that win is a big deal. It sets them above in this really competitive group and gives them a good footing to build off of for the rest of the tournament.